As the charges, or lack thereof, in Breonna Taylor's death were not disappointing enough, now the only officer charged in connection to the raid that killed her is cleared of all accountability.
We, the jury, found the defendant, Brett Hankison, not guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree. As to Chelsea Nepper, we, the jury, found the defendant, Brett Hankison, not guilty of. As to Zayden F., we, the jury, found the defendant, Brett Hankison, not guilty of wanton endangerment.
As you just heard there, a jury found ex-Louisville, Kentucky officer Brett Hankison not guilty. Now, he was charged with endangering Breonna Taylor's neighbors as officers fired 32 rounds in her apartment during a no-knock warrant nearly 2 years ago. 6 of the bullets hit Breonna Taylor. No one has been charged in her death, and she was just 26 years old. So now let's bring in our justice correspondent, Candice Kelly, to break this down a little further for us. Now, Candice, you know, the jury found Hankison not guilty, but this is a verdict that they just don't understand. So can you break it down a little bit for us?
Sure. Good morning, Shannon. You know, what people should understand is that this had nothing to do, according to the official records, of Breonna Taylor. And that was mentioned by the defense many, many times. They didn't want the jury to get this confused. What this officer was charged with was, as you said, reckless wanton endangerment, meaning that he went into a situation, he saw that there was a risk, yet he went ahead and acted recklessly by shooting into the neighbors of the apartment where Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend were staying. These are 3 people that were involved in terms of the ones who are at the end of the bullets. What the defense tried to make clear was that the bullets that killed Breonna Taylor, these were not bullets that came from Brett Hankison's gun. So that really was the issue. I also think that was interesting that this was one of the trials where the jurors actually visited the site of the crime to see what this officer was taking in when he approached the apartment complex. Did he know that there were neighbors that were next door? Did he know that anybody could have been in harm? So that was really the issue here, kind of assessing what was going on in his mind, and could he have perceived that anybody was nearby to actually be harmed? The jury said no, he was not reckless in his actions, Shannon.
And some may call that a smart strategy to have the jury go to the location. But what were some of the other strategies used by both sides, especially the defense in this case?
Well, defense attorneys argued, first of all, that Brett Hankison in this situation was a hero. They actually compared him with those firefighters and police officers who went into the 9/11 buildings that were burning. So they just kind of made the distinction that what his perception was, that he thought that he heard a gunshot, that he thought that his police officers and comrades were in fear, and that he was justified to do what he needed to do. Of course, the prosecution, they took the position that this is someone with 21 years of training, and that he should have known what was involved in terms of potentially harming other people. And why was he shooting into other places besides the place where there could have been potential harm? When Brett Wilkinson took the stand, he was very clear that he felt he was in danger. But those are some of the strategies that the prosecution and the defense presented. And certainly the jury 100% believed the defense in this situation.
Well, as you mentioned, he took the stand, and it clearly worked in his defense. So what were some of the things that he said when he was on stand?
So when he took the stand, it was very remorseful. He was very remorseful. There were a lot of tears. He said that Breonna did not have to die. I think that there was a lot of empathy, a lot of sympathy that he showed the jury, and jurors like that. At the end of the day, they want somebody to show contrition, and that certainly does help during the jury deliberation, and it also helps during the sentencing phase if it ever gets to that part. But here it won't get there, because he explained what was going on in his mind. He said that he thought that he saw a shot being fired at him and the people that he was with, and because of that, he reacted. He thought he was defending himself. He thought that he was defending his peers. And so this was someone who took the stand, not unlike many people that we've seen taking the stand in their defense over the past few months. But for this time, for Brett Hankison, it worked out in his favor.
And I know self-defense was a big part of Breonna Taylor's trial when they were trying to get someone charged with killing her. But can you remind us, why was he the only one charged in this case? And is it possible for someone to be charged later in Breonna Taylor's death?
Well, Shannon, it all comes down to the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron. At the time, if you remember, during the grand jury proceedings, he did not even present manslaughter or murder as I guess one of the options for the grand jury to consider that somebody could even be charged with. That was never on the table. The only thing that came to the table when it came to the grand jury were these particular charges of the wanton endangerment. Now, if you recall, Shannon, there was one juror who said, wait a minute, if we had known that, we would have strongly considered a manslaughter or a murder charge, and that juror actually filed paperwork in order to have the documents unsealed. At that time, the Attorney General had no choice but to say that is correct. I did not bring this to the jurors' attention. They only had this one thing in mind of the wanton endangerment. Murder and manslaughter were not on the table. On the state level, that is more than likely a closed case, but as we know, the Department of Justice has stepped in to see if historically there have been any civil rights violations and to examine the department to see how they function. And in that regard, there could possibly be federal charges, but right now there is nothing on the table. And more than likely, as I said, the state chapter of this particular situation has been closed.
All right. Thank you for clearing all that up, as always, Candace. We'll definitely check back with you a little bit later this morning. Sharon?
All right, Shannon.